I've always felt like I was different, like I had this ability to notice things about people that they didn't even know about themselves. You know, the subtle shifts in tone when someone's lying, the tension in someone's voice when they're pretending to be okay. It's like I've always had this radar for what's going on beneath the surface. Turns out, that's part of being an INFJ. But let me tell you, being this way in a world full of narcissists, it's no walk in the park. For years, I felt like my empathy and intuition were a curse. Like these things that made me special were also the things that got me hurt the most. Narcissists seemed to sniff it out, like they could tell I'd be an easy target. And for a long time, I was. But eventually, I learned how to protect myself. And not just that, I learned how to thrive. One of the first things I figured out was that I could see through people, even when they didn't want me to. Like, I can't tell you how many times I've been the only one to pick up on someone's bad vibes while everyone else thought they were the nicest person ever. There was this guy at work, I'll call him Brad, who everyone thought was just so charming and helpful. But from the moment I met him, I couldn't shake this feeling that something wasn't right. I couldn't put my finger on it at first, but every time he smiled, it felt like it didn't quite reach his eyes. And the way he talked to people, it was always just a little too smooth, like he was trying to sell you something even when he wasn't. Sure enough, a few months later, it came out that Brad had been taking credit for other people's work and throwing them under the bus when things went wrong. Everyone else was shocked. Me? Not so much. It's funny though, because being able to see through people isn't always enough to protect you. I've learned that empathy, while it's one of my greatest strengths, can also be my Achilles heel if I'm not careful. There was a time when I thought empathy meant always trying to fix things for other people, always bending over backward to make them happy. I had this friend, let's call her Amy, who would constantly play the victim. No matter what happened, she'd somehow twist the situation, so it was all about how she'd been wronged. And for the longest time, I fell for it. I dropped everything to comfort her, to try and make her feel better, even when it was clear she was the one creating the drama. It wasn't until I started really paying attention that I realized what was going on. I saw the patterns, the manipulation, the way she used guilt to keep me in line. And once I saw it, I couldn't unsee it. That's when I started setting boundaries. At first it felt weird, even wrong to say no. But the more I practiced, the more I realized how freeing it was. I remember the first time I stood up to my coworker, Lisa, who had this habit of dumping her work on me at the last minute. She'd always say, "You're just so good at this. I know you'll get it done faster than I could." And I'd fall for it every time, thinking I was just being a good team player. One day, though, I'd had enough. When she tried to pass off her work again, I just smiled and said, "Sorry, I'm swamped with my own stuff." You should have seen her face. It was like I'd spoken a foreign language. That was the moment I realized boundaries aren't walls, they're gates. They let in what's good for you and keep out what isn't. And narcissists, they hate gates. Another thing that's been a game changer for me is learning the power of silence. Narcissists thrive on drama. They need your reactions to feel powerful. But when you don't give them that, it's like pulling the rug out from under them. I had this boss once who loved making passive-aggressive comments, clearly trying to get under my skin, and I used to let it get to me. I'd over-explain, apologize, or try to prove myself. Then one day, I just stopped. The next time he made one of his snide remarks, I looked at him, smiled, and said nothing. The silence was deafening, and you know what? He backed off. That's the thing about narcissists. They don't know what to do when their bait doesn't work. Of course, none of this would be possible without my people. My inner circle, my tribe, whatever you want to call it. Having a few close, trustworthy friends has been my lifeline. These are the people who ground me, who remind me of who I am when the world feels overwhelming. My best friend Rachel is one of those people. She gets me in a way few others do, and knowing she's there makes everything else a little easier to handle. But the real secret to thriving as an INFJ in a world full of narcissists? It's purpose. Having something that drives me, that gives my life meaning, is what keeps me going. Whether it's helping others, creating something beautiful, or just trying to be the best version of myself, having a clear why gives me strength. Narcissists don't get that. They're all about the surface, the here and now. But when you're playing for something deeper, something bigger than yourself, It's a kind of power they can't touch. So yeah, being an INFJ in a narcissistic world isn't always easy. But with intuition, empathy, and a little bit of strategy, it's more than possible to not just survive, but thrive. And if you're out there navigating the same journey, just know you're not alone. We've got this.